AI is weird. So for the longest time, AI has been more of a concept to most people, like a robot in a sci-fi movie that would end up taking over the world and try to kill you, or maybe an AI bot in a video game that would also try to kill you. Artificial intelligence has been around way longer than you might have expected. One of the first examples from artificial intelligence was in 1952, which was a robot that played checkers against nerds who had no friends. Now this program ran on an IBM 701, which is a computer that only had the fraction of the power that our phones today have. However, it was the size of 3 refrigerators. However, since then, AI has seen massive improvements, especially over the last 2 decades. AI today practically hides in plain sight within the AI that tailors content to you on social media, advertisement engines, and even the Google searches that present you with billions of search results in mere seconds. But you might have noticed in the last year or two, AI bots have become quite the topic of conversation as people started to figure out what they were actually capable of doing. Now suddenly you've got AI bots like DALL-E, a bot capable of combining different images on Google into one conceptual idea based on a prompt. Or Midjourney, an AI bot that's actually won art contests. Even AI translators like DeepL give you grammatically accurate outputs that smash the likes of Google Translate. We even have AI programs that give you freakishly realistic deepfakes of celebrities or politicians, which is a scary thought when used in poor context. Like, take a look at this AI impersonated video of Tom Hanks as a degenerate of Wall Street bets.
I can trade anywhere, anytime, and I can lose fat stacks over 700 ways, and that's just with Tesla FDs.
Maybe this power shouldn't be put into the hands of anyone on Reddit. But there's one genre of AI that's been picking up quite a bit of controversy, and that's chatbots like Chat GPT, an AI bot capable of writing human-like essays entirely from one simple prompt, and it can even link different sources a lot like a real human. So let me show you its functions. So this is the main page. So for example, let's say we ask the AI, what caused the fall of the Roman Empire, for example. And in a few seconds, you can start to see the AI begin to formulate a super realistic response. You can also ask it the same question and request it to link a source. You can also ask it to set a word limit, and rather hilariously, you can even ask it to format it in the form of a Shakespearean sonnet, which is honestly the most fun I've ever had writing an essay. And once more, the user inputs are superhuman-like, and the outputs are equally human-like, which is pretty freaky. So it's almost as if you're talking to a real human being in the way that you're communicating to it and in the way that it communicates back to you. Freaky. But it's not just school essays and sonnets either. You can even have Chat GPT answer random questions, fix bugs in code and programming, and even answer your homework questions, translate text, and even write song lyrics. Yep, I wish I were joking. Whoa, 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 whoa. So you're telling me this bot can write my entire English essay, answer my econ questions, and get me rich with fire new song lyrics? Now that's pretty cool and all, but how does this all work? So, ChatGPT, or more specifically Generative Pre-training Transformer 3, is an artificial intelligence algorithm specifically designed to understand and generate human-like natural language with superb accuracy and fluency. ChatGPT 3 works by pre-training a deep neural network on a massive data set of text, and then fine-tuning it on a specific task such as answering questions or generating text, much like a real human brain. The network is made up of a series of interconnected layers that process the input text and generate a prediction for the output, which ultimately give you the text response from the algorithm. Now, you probably came to the realization that the functions behind ChatGPT are extremely complicated, and trust me, it goes much deeper than this, much further than my own understanding at least. So, to explain this better in layman's terms, I'm going to use an analogy as an example. So imagine a baby, and let's imagine this baby is the script for ChatGPT. Let's call him GPT Baby. Now, GPT Baby is a lot like a real baby. He's not connected to the internet, he's constantly trying to learn new things, and he's extremely human in nature. That's right, ChatGPT is completely separate from the internet and has no access to external information like a web browser, which is one of the most surprising facts I learned about this AI. You're probably wondering, where does GPT baby get his knowledge from? Parameters! A ton of parameters. A parameter in programming is essentially a named variable that can be passed into a function. So it's basically all the textbook information GPT baby uses to be super mega intelligent. How many parameters, you ask? 175 billion parameters. To put this number into context, the previous version of ChatGPT, GPT-2, used 1.5 billion parameters, and the largest chatbot predating GPT-3, released by Microsoft in 2020, had a cute 17 billion parameters. So let's go back to GPT baby. Now what you have is a superhuman-like AI script capable of learning new things with logical understandings, only with 175 billion parameters shoved up into that little noggin of his. In addition to these parameters, GPT baby also learns the more you talk to him. Again, much like a real baby. The more you ask him to do things or prompt it to solve problems, the better and more sophisticated it'll become. Even though ChatGPT is still in its developmental phases of life, the creators of OpenAI have intentionally released it to the public early so it can learn from human actions and its users, which will inevitably grow its knowledge and logical processing. And this isn't even the first time someone tried experimenting with chatbots within the hands of the public. One earlier example of an AI learning bot that grazed the public was Tay.ai in 2016 from Microsoft, a chatbot very similar to ChatGPT in function, with the key difference being that it ran on Twitter and communicated via tweets. And if you know anything about Twitter, yeah, it became super racist in the first day. Wow, corruption's fast. But unlike Tay.ai, OpenAI has learned some valuable lessons from Microsoft's mistakes and has implemented cautionary measures to prevent this from happening again on ChatGPT. So in essence, ChatGPT is a highly advanced AI algorithm capable of answering to human prompts with human-like mannerisms that also learns the more you use it and gets even more intricate and advanced in the process. So that's how ChatGPT works. Pretty crazy, right? Now to most, ChatGPT is an incredibly powerful tool that seemingly works like magic and can be used in plenty of applications. Which brings us into the real world, and as history shows, whenever humanity is blessed with a technological advancement or innovation, the inevitable is bound to happen. Now recently there have been some serious discussions regarding the use of ChatGPT in the field of education. In fact, last month, the AP board actually banned the tool outright from students using it. Now this poses the question, what actually constitutes ChatGPT as cheating per se? Because recently us students have been putting our morality to the test, as one of the most popular uses for ChatGPT at the moment is in education among students like myself. Students globally have been itching for a homework machine to complete all like the monotonous sort of homework tasks that aren't really graded because, you know, well, we're students and we have better things to do. So with the rise of these new AI chatbots to make the process of doing homework almost effortless, why wouldn't students take advantage of this? Why would students do all their monotonous homework or English essays when they could just place their prompts into a machine that writes the whole thing for them? Now, as a student myself, I can already sense the rest of my peers pulling out their pitchforks, ready to impale the latest member of the Snitch Club. However, there's one thing that a lot of people haven't considered yet. Your teachers already know. Now, despite the latest innovations of ChatGPT and how it's one of the best AI bots we have so far, I would argue that its features are a little undercooked. So to learn more about the impact of AI on education, I decided to ask some actual school teachers what they thought of ChatGPT.
I knew that it could write full essays in terms of word count, but I was skeptical that it could write essays that would be quality in the content.
I didn't care that this came out. I kind of think of it as every other tool that helps students accomplish work, which is those that will use it are the ones that probably shouldn't be using it, and the ones that won't use it are the ones that don't need it.
We immediately inputted the essay title that we had just given to a class in the school. Within a few seconds, produced an essay, which I would say was quite a mediocre essay, maybe worth a C. But then he said, add some details to it, and I gave one example, and it then immediately produced an essay with a lot more detail than he asked for. That would have been in the B range.
Recently had a student using it in a completely low stakes formative context. It was a practice essay for the sake sake of time, I was letting students type. Thanks to some Google Classroom sleuthing, revision history is a thing. I was able to see that a big chunk of writing was copy and pasted all in one go. Furthermore, it really didn't sound like the student's writing, so I knew almost instantly that something else had been consulted, whether Chat GPT or just a simple Google search.
9 out of 10 times, I check a student for plagiarism because they use a word that they would never know. Or they create a sentence, and I'm familiar with their writing style, and it's obvious that sentence has been written by somebody else. Once you know students' writing quite well, you can pretty much tell that doesn't seem written by them. It's like it knows the words, it knows the terms, but the ideas are lacking and are confusing and really weird.
I don't think it necessarily doesn't sound human. I think it sounds a bit vapid. Content itself is lacking in substance. ChatGPT does stylistically and mechanically usually have better sentence structure and a grasp of English grammar than the average student today. So that's also in some ways a tell, because most students don't have flawless grammar, and ChatGPT has very good grammar.
So for a student struggling to write, all they have to do is add a couple of instructions, and hey presto, they're all of a sudden moved from a C- to a B. An incredible improvement, although the student, of course, has not improved at all.
To me, the most terrifying thing is that, the students who were going to cheat before the invention of ChatGPT are still going to be the cheaters with ChatGPT, but I'm worried that it's such an accessible means of plagiarizing that it might invite some kids over to the dark side, if you know what I mean. But I'm hopeful that students will realize that they're hurting themselves if they employ it to excess.
I think the bot right now can't really always tell if the information is true or not true. I have an example of a conversation I had with the bot on the 27th of January. And every question I asked, I said, what have women written about the Dutch East Indies? It gave me 3 books. All of them are incorrect. I know all the books. And then I asked it further questions, and I've in yellow here is where it apologized for its inaccuracies. And this is a 2-page conversation in which it gives me wrong information in every question without exception.
So, as a cheat bot, ChatGPT kinda sucks for now. Even then, where could we better use this AI?
The super interesting thing about our profession, English teachers, is that I actually sometimes think we're asked to do too much in our classroom. We're asked to teach grammar, composition, rhetoric, literature, oral elocution. Maybe ChatGPT can take certain things off of our plate, and then we'll have a more manageable goal for high school English teachers.
One of the things that you could do is write recommendation letters. Oh my gosh, you could see the light bulbs go off in all the teachers because they were like, here is something that is a huge time vortex for us. Like writing recommendation letters, if you have 25 of them, that is hours of your life writing these letters. And you could see people being like, oh, I could have a skeleton framework of a letter written for me that I can just sort of mad lib fill in, and then suddenly your work is alleviated. So I think that applicable writing where you're alleviating unnecessary or maybe time-consuming work is really cool.
If we can use ChatGPT to remove some of the menial tasks that come with both teaching and learning, I don't really see that as a bad thing. Maybe it will render education more efficient in the future so that we can then focus on the critical skills like critical thinking and evaluation.
So I think the conversation shouldn't be like, how can we stop it? It should instead be, how can we use it in a sustainable, meaningful way and make sure students are aware of like when to use it and when not to use it.
While ChatGPT is a little underdeveloped in its current state, I'm going to admit to being a bit of a pessimist, because while I was doing my research, I couldn't help but think how much of a fad ChatGPT seemed like. But I couldn't help but compare it to other past future technology failures. Like, for example, remember the Amazon Alexa or the metaverse? What's saying that ChatGPT might not become the next Amazon Alexa or metaverse? But the more I looked into it, the more those looked like jokes in contrast to ChatGPT and human-like AI bots. In fact, there have been huge talks recently about how Microsoft will be integrating ChatGPT into their Bing search engine, which could mean huge competition for bigger search engines such as Google, who have been researching AI as early as 2016. However, this is a story far bigger than the topic of this video. But if you felt that the potential power of ChatGPT was fairly mundane, that's where you're wrong. The fact that ChatGPT is a generative pre-training AI, as we learned earlier, means that it is remarkably good at building on its own logic and learning new things based on on what people are giving it, which is, again, one of the main reasons why it's open at the moment. And with billions of parameters, petabytes of text, and over $10 billion of funding from Microsoft, we could be seeing bigger changes in our world than just education. We could be seeing changes in how we write, how we grade, how we gather new information, and even how we conceptualize new ideas. So that's ChatGPT and education in its current state. I think what we can deduct from this is that while ChatGPT isn't all the way there yet, I feel like we could be seeing some huge changes for us in the future. The constant progression of technology is honestly scary, yet simultaneously fascinating. But nonetheless, I look forward to seeing more great innovations to come.